Welcome to 1991 Movie Rewind, the podcast where we watch and review every movie released in 1991, from the all-time greatest classics to the critically panned and everything in between. We will rediscover forgotten fan favorites and uncover hidden gems as we explore the depths of direct-to-video. Join us in our celebration of the fun, unique, and diverse films of this highly underrated year. This week, we watched An American Tail, Fievel Goes West.
Hi, this is Nikki.
And this is Jon, and thank you for joining us on 1991 Movie Rewind. In American Tail, Fievel Goes West, Fievel and his family are struggling to find their place and make ends meet in New York City. The recent cat attacks also lead them to believe they need a change of pace. They are told of a place out west where cats and mice live in harmony, so they hop on a train for a whole new adventure. Screenplay by Flint, Dille, directed by Phil Nibbelink and Simon Wells, and released on November 22nd, 1991. Have you seen An American Tail, Fievel Goes West before?
Yes, I have.
So have I, but not since the original home video release, probably.
Yeah, me too, because I remember not liking it as much as the first one.
That's interesting. Yeah, I probably felt the same at the time, but watching them back to back now, I like this one more.
Oh, right. I like the first one still.
Okay. I guess we'll get into that a bit. The copy that we watched was also home video, but I think we acquired that after it came out. We watched a copy that came from McDonald's. They had a promotion around the time of Jurassic Park where if you bought any of these following movies and you get a $2.50 rebate on your $25 copy of Jurassic Park on VHS. So it was between like this and Field of Dreams, Land Before Time, and Back to the Future. And so I think our family picked up this one and then probably Land Before Time in that same promotion. But we never owned Jurassic Park on VHS, so we definitely didn't get it just for the rebate. It was probably just a very cheap movie that you could buy with like a Happy Meal or something. So that's the version that we watched. We were hoping to have like previews or McDonald's commercials or something in there, but there was nothing. So unfortunately, even though we watched an actual live copy, once again, no coming attractions to talk about.
Yeah, this is like our third time where we've been
it was
disappointed.
Like Popcorn, Unborn, and American Tail.
Yeah, no commercials.
Nothing. Very disappointing. It's the main reason why we watch them in those formats when we can. But yeah, let's get into the meat of the movies. I think both of them have a very, very simplistic plot. Basically, things aren't going so good, so let's move somewhere else. In the first movie, it's an immigrant's tale of mice from Russia trying to make it to America on this big boat that's full of other mice from other countries who are also going to New York City for a fresh start because it's a land of opportunity. Mm-hmm. And in that movie they say America has no mice or no cats, and there's like a big song and dance about how America has no cats, and then they get there and they find out it's not true and they have to defeat them. This one, same basic theory, is that things are not working so well
in the West.
Yeah, things are not working so well in New York City, but out west, cats and mice live in harmony, and dogs also. So, everybody gets along out west. So you should come out west, and that's just a fib that's told to them by a cat who's controlling a mouse puppet.
Right.
Which is kind of weird that they don't notice it's a mouse puppet.
That's why I was like, these mice. I don't want to say people. But I'm like, these mice cannot tell that mouse was like a marionette mouse.
Evidently not.
They don't see the strings floating above him and stuff. I was like,
or
they
the
believe
fact that,
this
thing. Disjointed wooden parts and things like that. So, no, they don't notice.
I mean, I know that they're mice.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes, mice are not meant
to be smart.
Yeah,
I don't know.
They're not portrayed in a very smart manner. Cats are supposed to be sort of outwitting them in a sense, but I mean, cartoon history tells us that mice are supposed to be the smarter between cats and mice. The mouse is always outsmarting the cat. This is kind of an exception, except for Fievel, who stumbles onto their plan by being naive and, you know, wandering when he's not supposed to be wandering. Sort of like what happened in the first one, where he went where he wasn't supposed to go, and then he got separated from his family and had to save the day.
Yeah, he's just like a typical kid, like a precocious little kid. And that's what was bothering me in the second one, is like he gets separated from his family again.
Just the fact that it happened again?
Yeah.
Like Home Alone 2 syndrome. It's like, okay, well, what's going on with these parents leaving Kevin behind?
Yeah, and then when he was reunited with them, they were like, oh, it's just you. Thank God.
Oh, good, you are alive.
Right.
Cool.
Like, they didn't give a shit that... I mean, in the first movie, they were agonizing looking for him. This time...
I'm gonna contradict you with that.
All right.
I mean, the sister wanted to look for him,
and then the
parents like, forget it, he's dead.
Well, because I think
we don't. No, it's a lost cause. We don't think he's alive. Shut up.
Well, because the father, the father like saw him go off into the sea. So in his maybe in his mind, he's like, okay, he is as good as dead, and this is like his way of grieving is like, no, he's dead.
And but I know the little this is like, you know, he is thrown off the train or whatever by the spider, and they say, "Oh, mouse overboard," and like, okay, well, he's a goner because he is.
So I mean, because the dad is like, oh, okay, he's gone. Like he didn't process his death like as if he was gonna die in this one.
Yeah, but they also didn't. Yeah, they didn't actively search for him at all. They just kind of like, okay, well, that happened. Time to move on. I
don't know. I know this is just like a cartoon. It's just like these mice. The family is just like, all right, well, you're back again. Cool.
Yeah. It's like, oh, hey, all right, well, now.
And the only one that like really super cared about him was like the older sister.
Yeah, the older sister. So, who didn't really have much of a role in the first one at all, than to say, hey, no, I think he's alive.
And
now in this one, she has a little bit of a role. Different actress, actually. I didn't write down the name of the actress who played Tanya or Tilly, I think is what they called her in the first one, because the American, tried. I guess Tanya wasn't American enough of a name in 1800s New York, and so they called her Tilly, and that's why Fievel was Philly.
Yeah, but they still call him Fievel.
Yeah, they reverted back to their original names in this.
Yeah, it's when they arrive at Ellis Island,
Yeah, a lot of names.
were changed, except when they say they're Mouskowitz, their names don't get changed. Their last names don't get changed.
They did, but they changed them back again. Afterward, I forget what they were given new mouse names at Ellis Island, but I forgot what their new last name was supposed to be.
But they were like, forget it.
Yeah, it never came up because they, it doesn't matter.
They're like, we're the Mouskowitzes, and that's it.
They're not going around society and like trying, I don't know, to interact with. They're not building businesses in the context of the story. It's a separate thing. It's just sort of a nod to this is what happened to immigrants when they arrived, because these movies do take place in the 1800s. I think as a kid, I probably didn't recognize that or retain that information, but the first one's like in 1885, I think it was, and then this one would have been a couple years later, this next year or something, chronologically. So this is like late 1800s that this is taking place.
Yeah, the first one was 1880, because it was when the Statue of Liberty was being built.
Yes.
And that's what I had to look it up. I was like, when was the Statue of Liberty?
I think they had little graphic on the front.
Yeah,
of the first
it
one
was like
1885
it
or
finished.
So.
Yeah, it finished around 1885, 1886.
Yeah. So
and then I was thinking, like, was that because didn't American Tail come out in 1986? And I was like, was this movie made just as an homage to?
It's probably serendipitous timing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was like, was this made for that reason because of the Statue of Liberty being built?
I don't think that was the reason, but I think they might have used that as a promotional type of a thing, a tie-in. So, I mean, the tale of immigrants coming to America and trying to find their place, that's a, you know, timeless thing. And then just to have the additional perspective of it being mice to give it that cartoony feel so that children could see the story. I think that was the overall goal of the first one. Second one was a little bit more of a cash grab in that it didn't really need to exist. But I think the reason I enjoyed it more is mostly because of the animation. And I think that the story had a little bit of a better flow to it than the first one. The first one, the scenes tended to just kind of end abruptly and switch to another perspective and another through line, and it just didn't work as cohesively for me. But we were talking about the sister, and we kind of got sidetracked on that. So yeah, Tanya does have a role in this, in that she's trying to be a professional singer, and in New York, she's not able to because, I don't know, whenever she sings out of her parents' windows, which is not for money, just to do it,
just to sing,
people are throwing stuff, and throwing tomatoes and stuff.
They're angry at her for singing.
Yeah, and I think that was
I thought it was just interesting that they incorporate the humans as well as the mice.
Yeah, it does happen more in this one than it does in the other one. But still not a huge degree, but more when they're in the saloons and stuff at the town, there's the cat saloon underneath the human saloon, and the worlds sort of collide here and there.
Yeah.
But most of the time when you see the out and open air, both in New York and in the West, in both movies really, it's just animals. You rarely see humans.
Yeah.
And I think in the first one, it's probably because they wanted to be as efficient as they could with the animation and not add a whole lot of elements. Like I said before, the animation in the first one was not nearly as strong as this. It's very lackluster. There was a lot of situations where the background elements or the characters were just frozen in time because they just did not want to actually animate the people that they were putting on the screen. You could see a lot of shadowing and ghosting and transparencies in the cells. It's just very sloppy to me. And I'll say the first one was done by Don Bluth, who has a good reputation of creating interesting work. And then this one was supposed to be done by Don Bluth, but he wanted more money than Steven Spielberg and the producing teams wanted to give him, because they wanted him to do it for the same budget they did for the first one. He said, no, it's going to cost more. And so then they said, no, never mind, we'll do it ourselves. And it did end up costing them quite a bit more to produce this one. This cost $22 million to make, whereas the original one cost about $9 something. So, Don Bluth was right, but the people they chose, Phil Nibbelink and Simon Wells, they did a pretty good job. They definitely tried to get a little bit more ambitious with things. Especially at the beginning of the movie, you see Wylie Burp in a fantasy sequence. Mm-hmm. So Wylie Burp is this fake... I don't know if he's supposed to be fake or if he's just an urban legend type of a character.
I was how did Fievel know about him? So there was a legend.
The same way that people would have heard of Billy the Kid.
Okay,
you know what I mean? So word just passes
word of
through...
mouth from the west to the east.
Yeah. So yeah, word traveled at some point about this character named Wylie Burp, who is this sheriff dog, and he has this fantasy sequence of him helping Wylie Burp take out all these cats, and there's this gunfight. And I say it's ambitious because you see the animation, the camera is circling around Wylie Burp, and you can see all these different elements, and there's a first person perspective and stuff like that. And so they're trying to do fun and interesting things and get good movement and new perspectives with everything. Whereas the original one, Don Bluth's idea of flashy was just, oh, you have a gold tooth, let me add some light coming through the back of the animation stand to make it glimmer. That's his, sort of almost a trademark of Don Bluth, is all the shimmer techniques that he puts on those things. So that, I'm kind of a minor animation nerd, and so yeah, this appealed to me a lot more just because I thought there was a lot more polish to this, a lot crisper in the animation side of things. Because I thought the stories were ultimately basically the same.
Yeah, pretty much. I just didn't care too much about this story.
Yeah, but I found that I wasn't caring too much about the other one, too.
I cared more about the first story than this. Because I was like, yeah, it's like what you were saying before, just the Home Alone 2 thing. I was like, again? I don't know, but we're just in a different setting.
Yeah, what maybe hurts this one a bit more is that we don't get to see a whole lot of new characters. The first one, you get introduced to a whole bunch of different characters.
Right.
You got like it was like the hawk at the Statue of Liberty, I think it was supposed to be. I don't
He was
really
a
remember.
pigeon.
Oh, pigeon, okay. And then like the pigeon pals, and then you have Tony and his rebellious
like his
girlfriend,
little gang, yeah, whatever.
Leader.
It was kind of like Newsies or something.
Yeah,
and
very stereotypical New York accent type of guy. He gives him the nickname of Philly, and he joins the rebellion, and there's like the hoity-toity person, and then the mayor character, and all these other people. But in this one, we have Tiger, who is the carryover from the last movie.
Yeah, is still their friend, who's the only cat that they trust at that point.
Because he's a vegetarian and he likes mice.
But not in that way. He likes mice as friends.
Yes, but not in that way. Because they have to make an actual point of that as like, making a joke of it. Mm-hmm. And then you get the new set of bad guys. You don't really get to see any new helpers except for Wylie Burp, sort of at the end, really. You have Miss Kitty as well, who is Tiger's girlfriend, who may or may not be playing both sides. You don't know until, the end of the movie. And then Tanya becomes something of a new character because she was so pushed off to the side in the first one, and now she actually has a speaking role, and she, factors into the plot a bit more with her cabaret sequence. I don't know what is
like her singing,
her performance, her debut, which is like weirdly like almost, I don't know, like nearly sexualized in a way, the way they do, because she's like basically like a can girl.
Right. Well, that's what Miss Kitty is.
Yeah. But they like put her in like the makeup and like puts the blush and the lipstick and stuff on this like 10-year-old girl. I don't know how old she's supposed to be.
Well, the 10-year-old mouse.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there really aren't that many new characters. We have basically 2 new bad guys too, because even though there's a gang of bad guys, it's really none of them have, like, if you look at the cast list, it's Caterwall, who is the main bad guy, played by John Cleese, and then you have Chula, who is the spider sidekick, played by John Lovitz, and those are the only 2 that are named, even though there's like 5 or 6 different goons surrounding them. None of them are named.
When I was looking at the credits, it's just like random people playing, quote, additional voices. Yes. It's like so-and-so additional voice.
Yep.
And it's probably just, one of those many sidekicks.
So no clue as to who did what. Clearly it did not have names, but... So that does hurt it a little bit. And the fact that Chula is... he's obnoxious.
I mean, they had that in the first movie, too, with, like, that... What was he? He wasn't a spider. He was more like a cockroach or something.
That was in this one, wasn't it? No. Was it not?
No, Chula the spider, and then the first one was
the first one was the cockroach.
Cockroach.
Boy, I'm already getting them mixed up. It's only been a couple of days since we've seen these.
It's just like...
I like the cockroach character. I liked the way the voice actor did all the twitches and the ticks and the noises.
Yeah, the cockroach, yeah.
Yes. But John Lovitz just basically tries to do...
I didn't even know that was...
impression.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was John Lovitz until, looking at the cast list.
Yeah. Which is probably how it should be, honestly.
Yeah.
But in those cases, I mean, if you can't tell who it is, then should it be a big star? Probably not. Most of the people who are in this are not major stars. But you do have Dom DeLuise, who uses his real voice. Mm-hmm. But in this movie, much more so than the first one. He tends to be more like a snagglepuss. Like his performance is much more like a snagglepuss performance than in the first one. And then you have John Cleese, who's basically just... I think this was his first voice acting role.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just uses his own voice. And
Right.
I also saw that he turned down a role in Beauty and the Beast to do this.
Interesting.
So, oops, maybe? I don't know. He's doing fine for
And
himself.
I mean, you have James Stewart. Like, this is his last.
His last movie.
I was like, I don't know. I was like, this guy has done so many movies, and his last movie is An American Tail, Fievel Goes West.
Yeah, I don't know if that was planned to be his last movie. He didn't die for a few more years after this. He died in like 97, was it? Or 95?
Yeah.
But it just turned out that this was the last movie for the Oscar winner. So, I mean, you have a decent cast of side characters, but aside from those 3 or 4, it's, nobody new in this one. And the main plot, the main conceit of the bad guy was, bring everybody into the West, be nice to them, gain their trust, and then get them into a giant gathering so we have this mousetrap that will squish them all at the same time.
Right, because they're going to eat them like mouse hamburgers.
Which is a really weird, convoluted plan just to get them all in one location to smush them all.
Right.
You wouldn't think that you would need to have them build up a town and, build their own mousetrap without them knowing it's a mousetrap. You could have probably just found a way to funnel them in and say, hey, we're going to have a town hall meeting, and then smush them,
Yeah, they could have just... So he hired them to build... Did the mice build that thing?
The mouse... Yeah, I mean, that's really the main part of the plan, I guess, but it's
he
not
hires the
said
mice
that way.
to build this thing, thinking that they're building something for the town.
Well,
And
it's free labor. It's
right,
yeah.
But instead they're like, oh, you're building your own mousetrap.
Yes.
But
But
they
they're also
don't know
building
it.
the rest of the town. They're
Yeah.
building shops, and they're building the town for the cats to use later on.
Right.
Because it's this big harmonious thing. So that's the biggest villainous aspect is I'm going to take all your free labor and you have to build this town for me that I'm going to use after you're all dead. That's the real meat of it. But what they say in the movie is, well, and then they're going to build their own mousetrap. We're going to gather them in this really small space and then smush them through some weird ribbon system that goes along multiple things. It didn't make sense. The whole mousetrap thing was more convoluted than it needed to be as well. And it also looked very much like a mousetrap when they saw the wide shot of it. So
Yeah, it was one of those snap mousetrap
yeah,
traps.
with like a spatula type of a thing
Yeah.
that would flop on top of them with all the holes and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying this one doesn't have its problems, but I still enjoyed it more than the first one.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, the first one to me is more of like a coming of age tale. This is just like, oh, here we go again with the same shit.
Yeah. I get you. I'm not saying you're wrong. I think this one also really ventures into the cartoony
it's like
territory.
too silly.
Especially, I think it's almost all the tiger stuff.
Right.
When you're following the family or even following Fievel, you have mice talking. You have them doing human things,
this is
but
a cartoon.
it's still
I mean,
relatively grounded in reality within that construct. But Tiger, he's like bouncing around and pinballing across these dog cages. He's flying thousands of feet up in the air and coming back down, and he's largely okay. Stuff like that is happening to Tiger, which is weird. They didn't have stuff like that in the first one.
no, and that's why I didn't like it, because it was too silly to me. I think I like the sad story of like Fievel trying to find his way back to his family.
Sure.
This was just silliness ensues. Fievel goes missing, Fievel comes back, and then his family's like, oh, all right. Mm-hmm. And then it turns into
and then they don't believe him that the evil man is evil, because he also says that he saw a tiger treated like a god by these Native American mice.
Right,
like,
which
oh,
I was
tiger's
like,
a god, and this guy's gonna eat
like,
us. Sure,
whatever,
Fievel.
I mean, it's like no one believes Fievel. This poor like 7-year-old mouse. I don't know. Right.
No, I understand your perspective. The first one obviously had a better song too. If we want to talk about the songs.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Somewhere Out There was a massive hit, absolutely huge. He actually won the Grammy for Best Song of the Year that year.
I mean, yeah, that song is still good. I mean,
oh yeah,
even like,
it was one of my favorites as a kid.
Right.
That and like Oliver and Company, Why Should I Worry was like around the same time. Like those were my two.
And I know this song, what was it, Dreams to Dream? Mm-hmm. Like they got Linda Ronstadt to do it again.
Yeah, they brought her back to sing this one. Not in the movie, just in the end credits.
Yeah, just the end credits.
And probably on the soundtrack. I don't know if they had both versions on the soundtrack, but
yeah, it looks like it was. Because, yeah, I mean, in the first movie, you have Tanya and Fievel singing somewhere out there. This movie, it's Dreams to Dream, Tanya singing it. And that's when Caterwaul, like, she's just, she likes to sing.
Yes.
And she sings this song, Caterwaul hears her, and that's when he, like, takes her to become this saloon girl in his saloon, his cat saloon.
Yeah, she becomes, like, the one mouse that he wants to save and not eat, in a sense, because he is so enamored by her singing
use
that
her
he wants to keep her around.
To sing, and then take all the money that she gets, I guess.
Oh, yeah. And then Miss Kitty helps her escape that life.
Right.
Which is why she's there, I guess, other than just to be a potential love interest for Tiger and add that element in there.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on, but at the same time there's not a lot going on in this movie. It's very, very standard. Again, I think where it really starts to shine compared to the first one is just in the animation portion of it. The story-wise, they're virtually equal in my side. In terms of, how they're, I don't know, virtually equal stories. Whatever, we've gotten into it. This one does have some more problematic aspects with the Native American mice, though.
Yeah, I was like, oh no.
So, that doesn't age super well. They almost treat the Native American mice as, like, natives,
like you see in, any Looney Tunes.
Yeah, they're gonna...
From, like, 60 years ago.
They string Tiger up and they're gonna eat him and put him in a stew, and they're all doing, racist chants around him, and then, oh my gosh, he might be a god because he looks like this rock formation. Aren't these silly mice
they
dumb?
treat him like a god for that time period. I don't know what that was, because they just start feeding him fruits and veggies, and he's like, oh, how did you know I was a vegetarian?
Right.
But then I don't know, like, Fievel appears.
Yeah, Fievel, okay, so they're both lost in the desert.
Right.
So Tiger tries to follow, he gets lost in the desert. They both have mirages, and at one point they have that little...
Yeah, the whole thing where...
sequence where they meet each other in the desert,
but they think they're mirages,
and, so
and then there's that.
And then... Yeah, at one point Fievel is picked up by an eagle and is about to be eaten, and the Native American mice attack the eagle to get him to be dropped, and he gets dropped into almost Tiger's mouth, like near Tiger's food, and so Tiger, like, accidentally eats him and then finds him in his mouth when he spits him out. So that's sort of how they get found again.
Yeah, and then Fievel tells Tiger about what's happening at this Green River where they're at in Utah, about what's happening in the town, about what Caterwaul is coming up with the mousetrap. But Tiger doesn't really come with him right away.
No, it's not.
He's kind of like not until
Not until Wylie Burp comes in near the very, very end.
But I think, because then they train Tiger to be like a dog.
Yes. Wylie Burp is very old in this. He can't really do everything, and he needs backup of other dogs.
Yeah.
And they choose to only get one other dog in the form of Tiger pretending to be a dog.
Right.
And where are the other dogs in this town that they could have used as like an army? It's really just Tiger.
But I mean, the whole part with like the whole, I guess, montage of Tiger turning or trying to be like a dog, that was cute and all, but I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think somehow
something of a longer montage of different stuff.
Somehow he's told that Miss Kitty is there, right?
Yes.
Because in the beginning of the movie, Miss Kitty leaves Tiger because she's like, I want you to be more like a dog. And I was like, what, tough, I guess?
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, she's
like,
really
I want you to be,
sentence conversation, and then
I want you to
off.
be a cat, but more like a dog. A cat that's more like a dog. So, I guess be more tough.
Yeah, something along those lines.
And then she just skips out of town and goes to the same town as like Fievel's family, and then
train doesn't take too many detours, I guess.
Right, yeah. They go straight to Utah.
Point.
They don't stop anywhere in the Midwest or anything like that. I was like, why is everyone going to the same place? I mean, I don't know. Whatever.
Because that's where that specific town is where the cats and the mice and all everybody lives in harmony.
Harmony, yeah. But there's only one dog and tons of cats and tons of mice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
But the main thing is that Wylie Burp is real.
Right.
We find him later on in the movie. He trains Tiger, and then they save the day, and he gets super mad when Miss Kitty is in trouble and just goes
right. He finally
nuts
sees Miss Kitty in peril.
Yeah.
And that's when he starts barking and whatever. He's
and then
using
the cats
his
get flung away into they get put into the mouse trap, and they get flung into the air, land in a mail sack, and then the train takes them away, which unplugs a water tower, which gives them water. When flowers start growing, everything's happy.
Right.
Yeah. So that's sort of how that goes.
So there's like one part. I was like, was this for the adults? Was when Fievel tells Tiger about Caterwaull's plan, and then this is, Tiger is being treated like a god, and he's like, okay, well, you can go back to the town, skip on to this little tumbleweed.
Mm-hmm.
And while Fievel is rolling along in this tumbleweed, they play Rawhide.
Yeah.
And I was like, was this for the adults? Because that's, the song that, I mean, was it because of the Rawhide theme song, or is it because of the Rawhide song that the Blues Brothers sing?
I don't know why they... Well, okay.
I was like, why this part?
It's a well-known Western.
Yeah, but...
I think, Blues Brothers might have been part of it, but that was, 11 years prior to this.
I was just like, why this?
And I think it was, if I read correctly, I think it was the Blues Brothers version that was used in this movie.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, why?
And then... But wasn't there also like a dog food commercial at the same time as this that was using the Rawhide theme song as well? So it was somewhat familiar to modern audiences from that. I mean, watching as a kid, I knew what Rawhide was.
Yeah, I mean, me too.
So,
but
it wasn't
I mean,
so out of the
plug
realm.
Into the adults, like, Blues Brothers, I don't know.
But it was also weird to see, a song from another source in this movie as opposed to another original song.
Yeah.
That was kind of odd. And, as the tumbleweed's passing by, all kinds of different animal creatures are singing Rawhide. You see them lip-syncing it.
That's where I was like, this is too silly.
I gotcha.
I mean, I understand this is like meant for children, but I like more emotion and stuff. I mean,
I thought you would be more interested in this one just because it's less of a musical than the first one.
I like more emotion. I was like, I like sadness over silliness, I guess.
Okay, that's fair.
And then, I mean, I know that they made more.
There's 2 other movies.
And I think they're prequels because it's them in Manhattan. It's American Tale: The Treasure of Manhattan Island,
released in '98.
And then you have The Mystery of the Night Monster, which
from
was
1999.
But I don't know where that was. But I was like, do they go back to Manhattan? But then I was like, oh, this is a prequel. So it was when they were still in New York trying to make a life for themselves.
That I don't know.
I never watched those because I was like, I can't.
Yeah.
And plus, I mean, that was like 98, 99. I mean, we're in high school going into college at that point, so I had no interest.
Yeah, we had no younger siblings to, that would have been of age to watch these with. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, I have younger siblings where I had to watch all the, not all, but a lot of the Land Before Time sequels.
Yeah.
So this is why I don't like a lot of cartoons, I guess, because I had to watch them.
That's true. You
growing up
from it is tougher to get you to watch
15 to like 23. So when you're a 15 to 23-year-old, you do not want to watch like kid stuff anymore. Not really.
Depends on the person.
I guess.
It depends.
I mean, I sort of was watching it. I was watching like. There are a lot of people
who just do not outgrow like the Disney aspect. You know, if it looks like it might be some quality, then there's a difference. Then
I mean, I'll watch like certain. Yeah, I'll watch certain like Pixar and stuff like that now, but usually when an animated movie comes out, and if it's not like Studio Ghibli, like I just don't care.
Right. Yeah, and when it's mostly direct-to-video, like every single Land Before Time
if it's a direct-to-video, then that makes, double don't care.
Yeah, there's definitely an added bit of stigma to it. And this was one that was released in the theaters, one of the few animated sequels from like the Don Bluth, series, even though Don Bluth didn't have any active involvement in this, that actually made it to theaters. So I'm sure part of that was having Steven Spielberg still involved, but I honestly I don't mind musicals as much as you do, but I actually appreciated this was not a musical the way that the first one was. There weren't spots where they just stopped and broke out into song. That started to bug me a little bit in the first one. It like ruined the flow more. I wanted to get in the story of things, and they just stopped for these really dumb songs. I guess it just reminded
me of like Newsies, even though it's like the same era, and
I haven't seen Newsies. So.
Oh, okay. I mean, that is a musical, and I don't know. I either hate it or I like it.
Yeah.
There's no like in between.
Okay.
With musicals for me. It's like absolute hate or, oh, I really love this.
Well, we'll revisit that discussion again probably in Beauty and the Beast, or I'm not sure how many other musicals there are in this project of ours, but yeah, I'm sure we'll have more to say about that then. I was also a little bit surprised that this movie did not really play with the Western setting a whole lot until the very end, when you got Wylie Burp in there and you started going around the town and you have the saloons and the... there wasn't much to do. It's just a story that happened to be in the West. It didn't really play with the Western setting at all.
And then their, quote, fight scene was like 5 to 10 minutes. I mean, this is like a 75-minute movie, so it's just...
Or 80-something. But, yeah, I don't have the box in front of me. I think it was like 82. Both of them were like in the 80s, I think.
80 to 85.
But yeah, you have an early sequence where the cats are chasing them all around, and then they go into the sewers. And again, that rapid sequence is animated very well, and you get seen nice perspective, and you get they're teetering on the edge of falling off the cliff, and you get to follow them with the camera. There's cool stuff that's happening in the beginning, and then virtually no action until the very end. So it's fine that it's a longer sequence because there isn't much in between the way there was in the first one where they have multiple shorter action sequences. So I didn't mind that there was a longer action sequence at the end, but I was ready for the movie to be largely over still. I do want to mention that there were a couple different variations. We mentioned some of the problematic scenes, and in fact, in terms of like the Native American representation in this, the channel Freeform in 2019, when they aired this movie, removed some of the shots of the Native American tribe. Same thing for, I guess, the Treasure of Manhattan Island. They did that at the same time to kind of reduce some of the not so great portrayals. So it is not aging super, super well. And then also apparently there is, almost every animation movie has this rumor about it of some lewd content, some weird sexual thing that's put in there. That exists for this movie, and it is real. And it was finally removed from the 2017 DVD and Blu-ray editions, but there is a penis doodle in the movie in one frame.
I mean, we didn't
notice it while we were watching. We didn't
notice it. I mean,
because it is just one frame.
I don't want to like go back and rewatch a VHS just to look for the doodle.
But it's going to be there. We're not going to have it on our website, but just search YouTube and it's there. It's on YouTube, so we just won't put it on our website. But yeah, there's a spot where it looks like somebody, from what I was reading, looked like somebody had messed up while drawing. Mm-hmm. They were flipping the animation cell over and just did not remove that mess up that they turned into a penis drawing as a joke. And so they're like reusing a cell or something. I don't know, some weird thing like that happened, and it just it stayed in, and it stayed in the home video releases until 2017. So I don't know how many reprints or anything came out in between.
I mean, who are these people that are like eagle-eyed looking for these things?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't know.
You just have somebody notice like a weird little blip in the screen. You're like, hey, what was that?
I mean, I'm just not hardcore looking for stuff like that.
All I know is like, okay, in the video game world, there's a lot of debate over like 30 frames per second versus 60 frames per second because people supposedly can tell the difference, even though 24 frames per second is what most films are filmed at, and it's a pretty good continuous motion. So if there's people who can tell the difference between 30 and 60 frames per second, just by eye, then there must be people who can notice, hey, there was a blip on the screen there, let me go back and see what that blip was, and then they notice it. It only takes one. So that's the controversy, as it were, I guess, in terms of the movie. Why don't we talk a little bit about the awards, and then we can get into the cast and crew. So there were award nominations, actually just one. A Golden Globe nomination for Best Original Song for Dreams to Dream. Music by James Horner. Will Jennings did the lyrics. But it lost to Beauty and the Beast. The song, Beauty and the Beast. Makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit about James Horner and Will Jennings. So, James Horner, we'll see him again in several different 1991 movies, most notably Rocketeer. He is an Oscar winner for the Titanic score, as well as the best song, My Heart Will Go On. He shared that with Will Jennings. He was also nominated for the scores for Aliens. He was nominated for Somewhere Out There on the same year as Aliens. Weird combination for a person. I'm going to do the score for Aliens, and also I'm going to write Somewhere Out There for American Tail. But anyway, Somewhere Out There lost to Take My Breath Away, by the way, back then in the Oscars.
I mean, yeah.
It's a toss-up. I think Take My Breath Away probably has more longevity. He also did the scores for Field of Dreams, Braveheart, Apollo 13, Beautiful Mind, House of Sand and Fog, Avatar. He was nominated for all of those Oscars. And then, unfortunately, he died in 2015 in a solo plane crash. So his Will Jennings, like I said, he won the Oscar for My Heart Will Go On. He's also written such songs as Up Where We Belong from Officer and Gentleman, which I think he also won the Oscar for. And he also wrote Tears in Heaven with Eric Clapton. Golden Globe nominee for Higher Love, Didn't We Almost Have It All, I'll Never Love This Way Again. Those are all his songs as well. So he's a very prolific songwriter as well. Getting into some of the cast and crew, the director Phil Nibbelink. He is a collaborator with Don Bluth here and there, but he also does some stuff for Disney. He's done as a director, he did We're Back, A Dinosaur Story, as well as a 1999 movie called Puss in Boots with Judge Reinhold, Michael York, and Dan Haggerty, which sounds terribly fun. As an animator, he's worked on such stuff as Black Cauldron, The Great Mouse Detective, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He was one of the leads on that one, and also the Casper 1995 movie. Simon Wells, who co-directed this, also did We're Back, Balto, Prince of Egypt, Mars Needs Moms. He also was a storyboard artist for a whole bunch of stuff like Spirit, Shrek 2, and Shark Tale. And he's also the great-grandson of H.G. Wells, the author. And so Simon Wells used that to his advantage to direct the live-action movie Time Machine with Guy Pearce from 2005 or something like that. So, Flint Dille also has famous grandparents. He's the grandson of John Dille, who is the person responsible for the Buck Rogers comic, and so he's part of that estate. He's mostly known as like a cartoon writer for TV, so and also comic books and stuff like that. So he's, video games. So he's done Pirates of Darkwater in 1991. That was him. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes cartoon, G.I. Joe, Inhumanoids, the Garbage Pail Kids cartoon. Those are all Flint Dille. He's also done games like Tomorrow Never Dies, Nuclear Strike, Army Men, Chronicles of Riddick, and also some of the live-action FMV stuff like Double Switch and Corpse Killer for any of those Sega CD fans out there. He's also worked on Dungeons and Dragons manuals and stuff like that, so he has a very wide variety of stuff. And then this doesn't really fit in the mold as much. But as it is, Jim Stewart, we already talked about how this is his last movie. I think if anyone doesn't know who he is, please familiarize yourself with James Stewart's work. He sounded very tired in this movie.
I mean, it sounded like Dana Carvey's
It did, yeah.
version of James Stewart, and I was like, why didn't they just use Dana Carvey at this time?
I mean, if you can get James Stewart, then you're going to get Jim Stewart.
I guess so.
That might have been a backup plan if he passed, especially with John Lovitz on the roster here.
Yeah.
So Jim Stewart was Wylie Burp, Oscar winner for the Philadelphia Story, and nominated for multiple movies such as Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, It's a Wonderful Life, Harvey, and Anatomy of a Murder. He's done a bunch of stuff, including a bunch of westerns, which is why he was probably considered for this role very strongly. A couple of other major people, Dom DeLuise as Tiger. He is also working with Don Bluth on All Dogs Go to Heaven. He's been in Blazing Saddles, Secret of Nim, Cannonball Run, Spaceballs. And he's also in the 1991 movie Driving Me Crazy, so we'll see him one more time. And I like Dom DeLuise quite a bit, so even though the character is cartoony, I still like the way he brings that character to life. Amy Irving was Miss Kitty. We didn't really talk about her at all. Miss Kitty did this very small role. Steven Spielberg's ex-wife came in to work with him on this movie. Oscar nominated for Yentl, but also had a Razzie nomination that same year for Yentl. Weird. I don't think that happens all that often. John Cleese as Caterwall, Oscar nominated for A Fish Called Wanda as a screenwriter. Also, obviously, most well known for Monty Python and Fawlty Towers. John Lovitz, well known for SNL. Also, at this point, a little bit with The Simpsons, maybe? I don't know if he had been doing too many guest roles on The Simpsons yet. Might have been right before that started. Anyway, Simpsons critic, League of Their Own, Wedding Singer. He's done a bunch of stuff. And then the main people in this. We got Philip Glasser playing Fievel. He was in one episode of Gabriel's Fire in 1992. We were talking about that show, so I figured I'd mention that. He was also in Tiny Toons in 1991, at least one episode of that. He has done the Creepy Crawlers TV show, which I did not know existed, but that was on for like 26 episodes or something like that. He was also on a TV show called Hang Time. Hang Time is live action. Creepy Crawlers was animated. Hang Time was like Dick Butkus and Anthony Anderson and a couple other people. It was sort of meant to be like a Saved by the Bell type of a show in the later 90s. Sort of past our time. He's also a singer. He's just quoted as singer for a lot of Disney and Pixar movies. I think that's where he gets, most of his work is just like a stable singer of Disney, including Beauty and the Beast. He is in that, doing something. So maybe you can pick out his voice. I don't know. And he was also on an episode of I'm Telling, the game show, with his sister. And I tried to find the actual episode on YouTube. There's like about a dozen or so episodes of I'm Telling that are available on YouTube. None of them have Philip Glazer, unfortunately. Or Glasser. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But I'm Telling is a really good game show. Or it was. Sort of like a Newlywed Game. You've watched it. You remember.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like Newlywed Game, except it's like brother and sister. And then at the end, whoever wins, they get to run around this hill of prizes, like one at a time. And you have to like pick which prizes you want, but your brother or sister don't know what you picked. And so, you have to match them in order to actually win the prizes. So it was really cool. So check out I'm Telling. And if you find the episode with him on it, let us know. We got Kathy Cavadini as Tanya. Again, replacing the original actress in this remake. She played Jennifer in the Back to the Future cartoon, but she's well known for playing Clash on Gem and the Holograms back in the 80s. And also probably most well known for playing Blossom in the Powerpuff Girls. So she's been busy since American Tail. So she does not only the voice, but also the singing in the movie. Mama was played by Erica Yan, who is Madame Ruby in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. She was on that one show, The Famous Teddy Z. I don't know, that was like a John Cryer thing that kind of failed in the late 80s. And then she was, in 1991, she was on episodes of Equal Justice, episode of Sisters, and also The Trials of Rosie O'Neill, which we talked about as well. Papa's going to be kind of our, pausing on the credits, as it were, a short one. He was born in 1919, and he is still alive as of this recording. He was 72 back in 1991 when he made this movie. Not too much difference in age of James Stewart, I don't think.
I think James Stewart was like in his 80s.
I think he died at age 75-ish. I could be wrong. I don't know. Feel free to look it up if you want to. But anyway,
James Stewart died in
he died in like
89.
Oh, okay. So he was
80s.
Early 80s, early mid 80s when he recorded American Tail. Fievel Goes West. Okay. So yeah, about 10 years off. Anyway, Nehemiah Persoff. I didn't say his actual name. I just said Pop. Nehemiah Persoff, born in 1919. He was one of the very first students at the Actors Studio, back when that was being established by Elia Kazan, was one of his first teachers. He was born in Jerusalem, moved to America with his parents in 1929, became a citizen shortly thereafter. He fought in World War II for America. He recently released an autobiography, like this year or last year, The Many Faces of Nehemiah. He's been in the movies Yentl as Barbra Streisand's father. He was in On the Waterfront as like the cab driver who helped, was with Marlon Brando in that famous scene. He was Little Bonaparte in Some Like a Hot. And then he was acting for a long time until a stroke at age 70 made him quit acting. So very much well accomplished, still going as of this recording. Again, fingers crossed, but if you want to know more about him, he has an autobiography out. So there you go. That's the cast and crew. We already talked about the awards, so on to true crime and pop culture. I can't imagine there'd be true crime unless you want to get into like Billy the Kid or something.
No, I'm not gonna get into that. I couldn't find anything that happened on this day. It was November 22nd, 1991, which was a Friday, and I think maybe it was the day after Thanksgiving. Like, I'm assuming.
Maybe.
And
unless it was like the week before Thanksgiving that year. I don't know.
Well, it's
whatever. Who cares?
Thanksgiving.
Around Thanksgiving time, regardless.
Right.
Just like how it is in this podcast. You're watching this. You're listening to this after Thanksgiving in 2021. Yeah. Anyway.
But I couldn't find too much that happened around that time, like in the news or anything like that.
Sure.
Or nothing noteworthy that happened. Nothing tragic. Besides maybe people shopping on Black Friday or whatever.
Right.
But so I'm just gonna get into TV, and it's pretty much the same, the TGIF lineup, and I mean it is Thanksgiving related. A lot of these episodes, like Perfect Strangers had an episode called Wild Turkey. And then after that, on Baby Talk, the show, their episode was called Cold Turkey. So we got turkey-related episodes happening. And on CBS, I found like a 5-minute clip, and I guess I'll give it to you.
Okay.
But on CBS, the Carol Burnett show was on, and it had Christopher Reeve on it, and I found just this 5-minute clip, and it seemed like it was the opening of her show, because it was him and her talking about how they knew each other, and they've worked together somehow. And then they start singing, and they do this row your boat kind of round. And moving on to music, the top 5 songs as of November 23rd, 1991 was, the first one was When a Man Loves a Woman by Michael Bolton. Number 2 is Cream by Prince and the New Power Generation. 3 is Set Adrift on Memory Bliss by PM Dawn. 4 is It's So Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday by Boyz II Men. And then 5 is Can't Stop This Thing We Started by Bryan Adams. It's kind of similar to...
Yeah, it's not too much different. Just slightly different order, maybe.
Yeah, it was a different order and this was like the week before Michael Jackson's Black or White started, like Dangerous came out. Because I was looking up albums that were released, and I mean, Dangerous comes out November 26th. I didn't want to talk about it because I was like, that's next week.
Yeah, there's another movie that... We've talked about that in like Cape Fear and other
movies. Yeah. I mean, this was right before Black or White became a thing.
Okay. Well, we should also probably briefly mention that there was a video game based off of this movie, which I've never played, but there is a Super Nintendo game based off of Fievel Goes West. And there's been other American Tail spin-off, computer software or whatever, a couple, I think, Game Boy Color games from... just throwaway shovelware type stuff probably, but I think this might be the first movie that we've covered that has a game directly based off of it.
Didn't you say this before and it turned out that
I said something about Naked Gun. Well, Naked Gun did not have a game based off of Naked Gun 2. There was a Naked Gun franchise related game.
Okay.
So this is one where there was an actual adaptation.
Okay, this is the first movie
put into a video game. Yes. I have not played it.
Yeah, I have not either.
I don't own it either. So, but we'll try to find like a
play.
Yeah, we'll probably find like some sort of like a long play video or a review or something like that we can put onto the website there if you want to listen to that. But it won't be the last. We got plenty more. Mm-hmm. In fact, I've even recently played through a game that was a 1991 movie. So coming soon at some point. On rankings and ratings we go. On your 1 to 5 star scale, where would you put An American Tail: Fievel Goes West?
gonna give this a 2.
That's fair. That's fair. Like I said, even though I like this better than the first one, I think it's really just because of the animation stuff and not anything else. So I'm probably going to say it's like a... I'll say it's a 2 as well. I'll say like straight up middle of the road. Whereas the first one I'd probably give a 1.5.
Oh, I mean, I think I would give the first one like 3 or 4.
I don't know. Like... It wasn't just the animation stuff. It's just that the story progression and the way the scenes were lopped together so seemingly haphazardly without any real progression or start or end to them. It bugged me in the first one. And the same basic type of stuff happens here. Anyway, I'm going to say 2 for this one. Every movie's worth watching once. Would you watch this again?
No. I'll watch.
Would you buy it from McDonald's to get $2.50 off of Jurassic Park?
No.
Okay.
I'll watch the first one again, but not this one.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe I'll watch the first one again as well. Right now, I'm gonna say no. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen these, so it's good to revisit them. So maybe in like another 20 years or something, then it would be worth seeing them again. But
I don't know.
I'm good. I can move on to other like Don Bluth stuff even. So, but if you out there want to watch An American Tail: Fievel Goes West, as of this recording in November 2021, it's available on Stars, digital rental, VHS, or DVD. As always, check your local listings. As for us, you can listen to us on all your major podcasting platforms. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and tell your friends. It really does help us out a lot. You can email us at 1991movierewind@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Letterboxd. Just search 1991 Movie Rewind or go to 1991movierewind.com for the full list of movies along with show notes and more. Next week, we're continuing our family theme with Suburban Commando. That's available as digital rental, VHS, or DVD. We will see you then.
Thanks.